Welcome back to TechniqueWOD. Today we're talking about building back and arm strength as well as scapular stability using one-arm rows. Okay, if you don't know what a one-arm row is, it looks like this. I usually kneel down on a bench, posting on one arm, and then I'm just rowing toward my waist. Just like that. Points of performance, just like any row that you would do. I'm bent over, I'm initiating with my shoulder blades, getting that scapular retraction, and then elbows are going, back toward my hip. So I'm not rowing the weight. I'm not rowing the weight straight up like this. I'm rowing down and back to here. My other arm, the arm that's on the bench, is pushing away as hard as I can. I'm protracting at my shoulder blade. So I'm not here, I'm not rounded over. See a lot of people round over like this on one-arm rows. Don't do that. So I have a nice neutral spine, outstretched arm, elbows locked. I'm protracted here at my shoulder blade, and then I'm rowing with the other arm. Again, initiating with my shoulder blade, kind of in this direction here, and then rowing usually toward my hip. Okay? If I leave my shoulder forward, and then I bring my elbow up and back like this, that's very hard on your shoulder, and you're missing out. You're missing out on all of your upper back musculature that pulls your shoulder blades all the way together. Okay? Lats, rhomboids, etc. won't get any work, lower traps, if you're leaving your shoulder blades protracted and anteriorly tilted like that throughout the movement. Okay? So this gives you a lot of strength and stability in your upper back. A lack of scapular stability leads to a lot of shoulder problems, and doing horizontal pulling, where I'm pulling toward me this direction as opposed to doing pull-ups where I'm pulling in a vertical direction, tends to be very healthy for your shoulders. A lot of overhead sports like CrossFit, gymnastics, weightlifting of course, they do a lot of vertical movements, both pressing and pulling, but they don't do a lot of horizontal pressing and pulling. So if you've been doing a lot of vertical, it probably is in your best interest as far as the health of your shoulders to cycle in some more horizontal pulling, just like one-arm rows, bent rows, and any other variation there that you can think of. As far as variations on this movement, I showed kind of the most basic one where I'm posting on a bench. You don't have to have a bench, of course. You could just have, anything that you can post your arm on. I can just post like this and pull here. Or of course, you don't need anything at all. You can just bend over like a bent row and just pull here. If you want, you can be very, very stable and very rigid with your torso where you're not twisting at all. So from the front, I'm here, pulling there. Or I can reach and kind of get a little bit of rotation and a little bit of momentum, just like that. Of course, you want to do that under control. If you're very tired and you're letting the weight snap forward like that, and you're getting all out of sorts in the process, it's probably not the best on your back. So make sure that you can do the basics well, where you're staying here, where if I had both hands forward, my other hand wouldn't move. Once I'm there, then you can worry about potentially reaching and getting a little bit of extra torso stimulus as a part of the movement. So I showed two different variations, two different categories of variations. One where I'm posting an arm, and one where I'm kind of freestanding and I'm not posting on anything. Generally, if you're posting, you have more stability. You're getting more stability because you're holding on to something. This thing is giving me stability because I'm grabbing onto it. If I'm out here, I have more freedom to move around. Generally, the more stability you have, the heavier weight you can use, and the more activation you'll get with your prime movers, in this case, my big muscles like my lats. If I have more instability, then it's less likely that I'll get as high of a stimulus on my prime movers, and I'll get a little more stimulus on my stabilizer muscles. You'll likely be able to do more repetitions with a heavier weight when you're a little bit more stable. A few other quick points about technique and range of motion. If you are relatively new, then you might start with a slightly shorter range of motion. So I could bend over like this for the freestanding version. I'm only angled at like 45 degrees, we'll say, and so this range of motion is pretty short. Just like this. I'm not even really doing horizontal pulling. I'm pulling like from here, okay? And the more and more I bend over, the more and more out in front of me it gets. So instead of pulling here like when I'm barely bent over, as I bend over more and more, then I end up getting that true horizontal range of motion. If you want even more range of motion, then you need your torso and your head to be below your hips. So you can do that if you want to. Usually what I do is I'll post on my knee, and then I'll post on my elbow toward the end of a bench, and then I'll kind of get on my tippy toe on my back leg. And then now I'm here, so I'm getting a little more range of motion because my butt's a little bit higher than my head. And so now, with this bent over version, I was pulling kind of like right here. If I'm torso all the way flat to the ground, then my hands are basically out in front of me and I'm pulling there. And then with the variation I just showed where I was posting on my elbow, it's kind of like I'm pulling from here. It's kind of like I'm pulling from right here. So you can vary the range of motion based on how bent over you are. You don't really need to have your hips that much higher than your shoulder than the variation that I just showed. If you want your hips to be, if you want the vertical pulling movement, if that's what you're after, then just go back to doing pull-ups. So typically for movements like this, programming wise, I don't tend to do a lot of very heavy reps. I don't typically build up to a 1 rep max on a 1-arm row. You certainly could do it. It's physically possible to do it. I don't think there's a whole lot of benefit in doing that. Doing 5 sets of 5 is probably about the heaviest I ever do 1-arm rows. I typically do more like the classic hypertrophy rep ranges, between 6s and 12s, that type of thing for 1-arm rows. But of course, you can do whatever you like. But that's more common than not to stick to those kind of more moderate rep ranges. If you're a CrossFitter, a weightlifter, a powerlifter, or any other strength athlete, I think there's a lot of value in doing these movements. If you're not currently doing any horizontal pulling, all vertical pulling like pull-ups, a whole lot of other vertical movements, you're doing a lot of jerks, a lot of handstands, et cetera, I think adding some horizontal pulling into your program, granted it's not exceeding your the volume that you can tolerate. Maybe you have to remove some other things, but adding horizontal pulling once or twice a week I think could be very healthy for your shoulders. So add them in as assistance work, 3 to 5 sets, 6 to 12 reps at the end of 2 of your workouts per week, I think is a great place to start. Of course, you should consult your doctor before you take that advice, or more accurately, talk to your coach and see if that's a good idea for you. Hope you like it. Let me know what you think. My name is Doug Larson. You can follow me on Instagram, Douglas E. Larson on Instagram. Also, everything Shrugged Collective. I'm on Barbell Shrugged every Wednesday and Saturdays, TechniqueWOD every Sunday. And then we have other shows throughout the week. Got the Bledsoe Show, Real Chalk, Feed Me, Fuel Me. And then we have a rotating spot on Fridays. We've had many different shows on our Friday slot. So be on the lookout for new shows every Friday. And we also have the Program Vault. We have 12 programs in the Program Vault. There's probably 10 years worth of programming in there right now. There's a lot of workouts, so you have a ton of different options, everything from gaining muscle with the Muscle Gain Challenge to losing fat with Barbell Shredded and everything in between, weightlifting, strongman, healthy shoulder programs, cardio, aerobic monster. We have a variety. Anything you're looking for in the functional fitness world, there's probably workouts in the Program Vault that will be good for your needs. So check that out, shruggedcollective.com/vault. I'll see you another day.
Shrugged listeners, welcome to the Shrugged Collective Program Vault. Over the last 6 years, we've been leading the charge in online strength and conditioning programming and coaching. And for the first time in the history of the Shrugged Collective, we're combining our 11 best-selling long-term and short-term accessory programs into one membership site called the Program Vault. From Olympic weightlifting to strongman, leaning out, nutrition, you name it, our 11 best-selling programs are yours for $47 a month. Get to shruggedcollective.com/vault and you will find immediate access to our 11 best-selling strength and conditioning programs.